My guest today is Pat Axe. He is a singer as well as a songwriter, and he has another talent. Want to know what it is? Well, keep watching and welcome to Small Talk. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Well, I think you're going to I think you're going to enjoy this interview. That's what I was trying to say. I'd like to welcome my guest, Pat Axe. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It is my pleasure for sure. You know, I enjoyed your bio that you sent me. So what I want to know is, when did your interest in music start to begin with?
Well, I was a kid in the 60s, and I grew up with all the variety shows on TV, Glenn Campbell. And when the Glenn Campbell show came on, I think I was in grade 6, or the Smothers Brothers. And that's like 1967 or whatever. And I was like 11 years old in 1967. So I grew up with the Beatles. I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show when they first appeared. And I had, the Monkees. So my whole life has been marked with music. It's like I look at my life through the years and I kind of mark it by what was a hit on the radio. In my earliest memories of music, I remember seeing Chuck Berry on TV in 1965 playing Maybelline. And I went, that's what I want to do. I got the bug. That's when it was. And it was like, I remember my dad saying, he's the greatest guitar player in the world. And it's like, then I started watching, Glenn Campbell show, and he had John Hartford. And I wanted to play banjo as a 12-year-old kid, and parents couldn't afford it. So by the time I was 14 in grade 8, my parents could afford to rent me a guitar and send me to music lessons. Wow. So I guess it was the fall of 1969, going into grade 8. Just turned 14, and it was just like, I wanted to play. Right. So I messed around with musical instruments till I was about 17. Then I got serious.
Okay. So now I know you play the guitar, but you also took piano lessons at one point, right?
I took piano lessons because back around 72, I went and saw a band called Yes at Maple Leaf Gardens. Mm-hmm. And Rick Wakeman was just larger than life. And it was Halloween evening, 1972, Maple Leaf Gardens. And I was just like, it was the beginning of the whole prog rock scene. Yeah. And I got the bite. I just loved the way Rick Wakeman, played music, and I was a big fan of the band Yes and the album Close to the Edge. And I took piano lessons, and then I realized, no, guitar is the instrument for me, because all the music I listened to was guitar music.
Right. Yeah. So much of that era, at least that's my memory too, is so much guitar music, right?
Yeah. And the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. Right. That album is huge.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Now you learned, you also took bass guitar lessons, right?
I took guitar lessons when I was in grade 8. And then because of the whole Beatles thing and the Yes thing, they both have really prominent bass players. I got the bass bugs. My parents bought me a bass.
Right.
And a bass amp. So I could always get a good noise out of an instrument. When I first sat down with the guitar, I learned how to make it feedback. Learned how to rattle the windows in my bedroom.
That made your parents happy, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like, a 15-year-old kid, they're going, turn it down. I'm going, but it goes to 11.
So now you took lessons from somebody who is this? Lesson with Eugene Martinique?
Eugene Martinique.
Right? That was it.
Eugene Martinique was the guitar player, and he originally, as far as I know, he played with a band called Kensington Market, who were a really big, famous band in Toronto in the 60s. And then he played with Murray McLaughlin. He was a guitar player in the Silver Tractor Band.
Right.
And he worked with Bruce Cockburn. He produced the album Wondering Where the Lines Are. And that was around the time I was taking lessons from. Somewhere between, I took lessons from in two increments. I took them around 77 or something like that. And then I took them about a year later. And he was a brilliant musician. It's just like, it was effortless to learn from him.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now now you might already talked about some of your interests, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, etc. Right?
Yes.
Strong influence on you. You started busking with a friend. What's that? 1979.
Yeah, the summer of '79. He used to live down the hall from me, and we connected, and we'd both been playing about the same length of time. We got it. He taught me. We just traded notes. So it's like anybody does. Oh, he knows that chord. Oh, let's go over to him. And
Right.
so we got to the point where we had quite the repertoire. I mean, I've always been more into the country blues and stuff, and he was into the Bruce Springsteen and the Nick Lowe's, and I just, so we met in the middle, and I was a big Johnny Winter fan, still am, and so and it was around the same time George Sorgan became really popular, so we taught each other tunings on guitar, open tunings, and that's probably around '78, '79 is when I learned songs like "Move It On Over," Bad, all those kinds of real rock and blues type songs. Right. That are influenced by the John Lee Hookers, and through their Claptons and the George Sorgans, I rediscovered Hank Williams, and I learned about Muddy Waters. Right. So, I mean, it's like if a kid were to learn today, they'd learn who's modern. Then they'd go, well, who influenced you? So I go back. So I just kept going back and back and back. And because I played bass and took piano and played a bit of guitar, I could read music a bit.
Right.
And I understood the format to be able to play a scale. So it's like songs like the old Fred McDowell song, "You Gotta Move," that the Stones did on Sticky Fingers. You gotta move. That's one of the first bass lines I ever learned. So when I picked up guitar and started listening to blues, it all made sense. It just made sense. It's just finding the notes and understanding the rules.
Yeah, right. So you took that knowledge with your friend. Now you're on Yonge Street busking.
Yes.
So now I've only known people who busk here out in Chilliwack, which is a much smaller place, obviously, than downtown, than Yonge Street in Toronto. So was it successful, like financially? How do you do when you're busking?
Well, the first night I did it, his name was Kevin. I won't tell you his last name, but Kevin and I were on Yonge Street, and we basically had an open guitar case. People kept throwing loonies. It was days before loonies.
Right.
It was a lot of quarters and dollar bills. And at the end of it, we said, okay, that's enough. It's like getting to the point. And we're just down the street. I think we're down the street from Yonge Station or down the street from the Gasworks. And we counted our money and landed up, we made like $65 each. And it's like, wow. And it's just like, I mean, I've been on stage, I performed in front of people before, but to be performing on Yonge Street and having the downtown crowd going zipping by, and then have people stand there and watch you, that was thrilling. That was invigorating. I got bit. That's when I got bit. I got bitten then. It was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Nice. Yeah. So you did that for what, a year?
No, we just did it a couple of times in the summer of '79.
Okay.
And then we played a lot more together, and then we went our separate ways. Like you do. I mean, I was 1979, I was 23 years old.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, we went our separate ways. And then I busted a couple of times, but I always felt stronger when I had a partner. So I remember my parents saying, "Hey, why don't you go out busking?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have anybody to do it with." And so that's the thing about music. You got to have, no man's an island. The old saying. It's like, you can go out there and perform solo, but if you want a band, you got to have 3, 4 other people you get along with.
Yeah, for sure. Now, speaking of band, you've been in a number of bands, right?
Yes.
So what was the first band?
The first band was a band of, brothers, it's like my best friend who I grew up with since first day of grade 8, he played drums. Okay. I played guitar. And my other friend, Peter, played bass. So Glenn played drums, I played guitar, and Peter played bass. And around 1975, we started jamming. And we made a hell of a racket. And then we'd rent spaces. And then, so the first gig we did was, I think, my younger brother was going to high school. So they wanted to do a show in high school. So we did a show. And that would have been 76 or 77. We got played 3 or 4 originals, and
Right.
we actually videotaped it. And I wish I had the videotape. Because I could put, if I put it on, people would just be like, how people would find it hilarious, because I was always comfortable standing in the shadows. I was never comfortable being the front person.
Ah,
So I wasn't the singer. So that was my first live performance. And then after that, I loosened up. After that, I just let the guitar take over for me. Lost a bit of my stage fright.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that initial, I can understand. I've been on the stage, not as a singer, but, you know, doing acting or, you know, in improv and stuff. And the first time is always very scary, but you do get warmed up. Now you joined at some point, where are we here? You started playing blues, right?
Well, blues has always been the foundation of where I come from. It's always been the music, my go-to music. I mean, I was 15 years old. I went to Sam Record Band and said, I want a Johnny Winter album. Could you, suggest a good one? So he brought out, I think Johnny Winter's second album. It's a black album cover with his face on it, and it's a great album. So Johnny Winter is probably one of my earliest influences. And then, that's where I learned how to play blues. All my friends were into Pink Floyd and The Who, and I was listening to Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's like when all my friends went to see Pink Floyd do Dark Side of the Moon tour, I went, that's not for me. I later learned to appreciate Pink Floyd.
Right, yeah. So now you kind of did a circuit around Toronto, Ontario scene, right?
Yes, I played then, and then around 1982, I got involved with the reggae circuit. I can't remember how I met these guys. It might have been an ad in one of the local newspapers. Pardon me. But I went to the audition, and I still talk to my buddy, one of my buddies from that band. We were called Burning Desire.
Okay.
And he's my buddy who's Jamaican. His name's actually John Lennon. And I asked him, I was talking to him about last month, and I said, John, how did I get the gig? He goes, you could play.
Uh-huh.
He goes, there's nothing we threw at you couldn't play.
Wow.
And we were playing like Jimmy Cliff, Bob Marley, and we were playing Grover Washington songs, the George Benson songs, and Journey songs. And I just knew the musical alphabet.
Right.
I could play.
Mm.
So it didn't matter if they're throwing a combination of minor chords at me or major sevenths. It basically, I found the common denominator, found the soul of music, and I just played.
Yeah.
And that's where, and I mean, I grew up in Toronto, like all of us who grew up in the 60s, we had AM radio. So we grew up with Motown. Motown was the backdrop to our childhood. So I just absorbed it. So I understood rhythm and blues. I understood where all the different music came from. So when I was thrown in, I'm in a room with a bunch of Jamaicans. I'm the only born Canadian in the room. And it was like either sink or swim. So I'm standing there with my Les Paul and a little amp, and it's like they're going, okay, here's this song. And they give me a chart. I'm going, okay, let's go.
Now, at some point, you started writing songs, right?
I started writing. Well, Glenn's older brother, my buddy Glenn, who I grew up with, his older brother David was always he's 2 years older than me.
Right.
So it's like he was always into the folky scene. He turned me on to people like Steve Goodman and John Prine, and he was saying you should write. It helps your playing, right? It can express yourself. And I also wrote in school, in high school, when you write short stories, I used to just go off on tangents. I mean, teacher go write a couple of paragraphs. I'd write 3 pages, and I would let my guard down and write what was actually on my mind. And so I think it came naturally for me because I'm an artist. I paint and I draw. So I think they're all connected. It's just tapping in on how you want to put it down.
Yeah. I believe in that totally. Like what the part you didn't see when I opened the show, like I do a little clip before I start in the interview, and I mentioned that not only you are a singer songwriter, you are also have another do something else. And I hadn't mentioned that because I wanted to bring up within
Oh,
the fact that you're also a painter. And I've met so many people who are artists who are multi-talented.
well, I got to the point in high school where art wasn't just doing it for me. And because I listened to music, and I was a little hippie, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember listening to albums like Fleetwood Mac in Chicago. And it's like 1970, 71. And it clicked. I remember hearing Madison Blues for the first time, right? And Shake Your Moneymaker. And these songs made perfect sense. And then I got to them. And then when I was 17, after playing around with musical instruments, when I was 17, I got serious about it. I started learning chords. And things came easy.
Right.
I could always find a melody. I could always poke out a melody or make one hell of a racket that made sense.
Right. Yeah. Tell me about it. In your bio, it says you're an interpreter of songs. Sorry, sometimes I get my words all mixed,
Well, interpreter of songs is if I were to get up on stage and sing a Hank Williams song, it would come out sounding like me. It wouldn't come out sounding like Hank.
Right.
I do that so I'm really careful about the tunes I pick. It's like my new band, what I do is I'm the one singing, right?
Yeah.
But we're a collective. We're a 5-piece band, and
okay,
the other guys have just as much say in what goes on in the band as I do.
Right.
I just happen to be the lead guitar player and singer.
So what's the name of that band? Yeah, what's the name of your band?
Pat Axe.
So that is the name. Okay, great. All right.
So it's like when you go and see Johnny Winter, you went and saw Eric Clapton. Was it the Eric Clapton band, Johnny Winter band? It's
right.
just like for a long time I hid behind being in a band,
mm-hmm.
or so I always use the Pat Axe band as something to hide behind, where it's like, okay, just own it.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm Pat Axe, and the band is part of Pat Axe. Don't have to say it's a band because it is a band. Everybody knows. Yeah. And if I'm playing to 20 people, there's a chance I'm going to be playing solo. But if I'm playing to 200 people, it's my band. Right. So I gave one of the guys in the band, the harmonica player, Paul. He said, "Well, what do we do for songs?" I said, "I'll give you 50 songs. Boil it down to 30." So we got together and I gave him a list of like 50 songs, and he boiled it down to the ones he thought would make up a good show. So because the music's very close to me and personal, yeah. And even my own songs, and more so, I hand the list over to Paul and said, "Make up the sets." So that way everybody's, because there's some songs I take for granted. Some of my songs, my own songs, I don't perform unless people ask me to.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm tired of them. I mean, they're good songs. I won't tell you which ones they are, but
I think they're good. Yes, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you put out a CD, right? In 2013.
2013, yes.
And what's the name of the CD?
Pat Axe.
So, okay, and that's on iTunes, CD Baby.
It's on CD Baby, iTunes. I even uploaded it onto YouTube.
Oh, okay, and it's on Spotify as well.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I haven't heard of CD Baby. I never heard of that.
Well, that was the company I sent all my stuff to. Okay. Download it onto their site, and then they post it for nominal fee. They will post it for you.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
So I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a lot, but so I got 6 songs released, all original.
Yeah.
And
nice. Yeah,
it was an experience.
Yeah.
It's like I've got well over 30 songs that are ready to put out, but those are the 6 I could afford to put out at the time. And I got a bunch of recordings in the can too.
Right. So now that things are so different, like with the electronics, the way everything has changed, is getting your music out there easier?
No, it's more difficult because I find you have you have the bunch of us who are like, you know, teenagers in the 70s who grew up with analog. I was never a technical kind of guy. Even when it was reel to reels and cassettes, I wasn't the guy pushing the buttons.
Right.
So yeah, it's difficult. The digital world is difficult for me.
Yes.
And I don't have a 15-year-old at home to push the buttons.
The young people are like, they just know it, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that's unfair. So now I'm going to switch topics and talk about your painting a little bit. Your painting a little bit more.
Okay.
You said one of your influencers was Andy Warhol, right?
Oh, I love Warhol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see, beloved children's cartoons.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was a kid at, like, you know, 1964. I guess I was 8 years old. And, you know, watch Popeye and watch Beanie and Cecil and Supercar and all that stuff. You know, I mean, you just went into fantasy land as you know, a 7, 8-year-old kid, right? You
Yes.
went into fantasy land on Saturday morning for about 3-4 hours.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like my art, you could tell what I watched as a kid. I mean, I learned, you know, it's like I learned how to draw a Popeye at the same time I learned how to draw a cat.
Interesting.
So it's like there's certain things that you teach kids. Like, you know, you take a number 5, you do a number 5, you can make Fred Flintstone out of it.
Right.
Because the 5, like the hairline, then the forehead, then the nose is the round part of the 5. And you go from there. So I learned all these little tricks. Not everybody can pick up on it. So that's, you know, so it was understandable that I went from art to music.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, art is music as well as many other things, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. You know, I really, yes, for sure. Now, has your artwork been on display anywhere?
I posted on Facebook and on Instagram.
Okay.
I've sold a couple pieces.
Nice. Yeah.
I have a cat. If you look on I have 2 cats, but one of them is the subject of my paintings and my artwork.
Okay.
And I did a painting of my cat sitting in the window. He's a big black cat. His name's Noodles. And I did a painting. I can't remember what it is, 13 by 18. It's a good size painting anyway. And it's a painting of a cat in a window with a vase. He's staring out the window at a beautiful sunset. And there's a vase that's been knocked over. The water's pouring out of it. And there's flowers. And that's what cats do. Yes. They will knock stuff off the table.
On purpose sometimes too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, you know, cats are like, get out of the window. It's my view, not yours.
So what are you doing currently? What are you working on?
Well, artistically, I'm trying to regroup. And, you know, sometimes artistically, I get tangled up in, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? And if I don't think about it, that's when it starts coming out. Because I used to love doing oil painting, but now I'm working with acrylic, and acrylic is a different entity than oil. Oil, you can put a glob on there and it'll stay.
Right.
Acrylic, not so much. It's a bit runny. So, you know, I grew up with all that poster art too, and Toulouse-Lautrec and Vincent Van Gogh and Warhol, and I discovered Sharpies as a young kid. Magic markers, always liked it. So it's like sometimes I'll do a drawing and I'll go, you know, it needs something else, right? And I remember Disney and all those other cartoons. The thing I learned from cartoons is they all have a black line around the character.
Yes.
You look at Mickey Mouse, he's got black lines around his gloves. So I went, that's what I'll do. So I do a painting, and then I take it and I take a Sharpie to it after. So it just goes, that makes it pop.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Are you doing any? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just changing the subject again. I just wondering if you're doing any writing, whether it's for more songs or any other kind of writing.
Well, I have one song I just finished. It's called Save Me. And the opening line is, driving down the road, I got Hank on my radio. I've got it posted on YouTube and a few other places. I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but the band's going to do it. And currently there's a songwriting contest going on for people over 50. And I got a friend of mine who plays mandolin, and my band wants to do it. I'm gonna do it with some campfire harmonica and mandolin, and maybe bring another guitar, my bass player, in to play second guitar. And I'm gonna record it and send it in. And it's, my dad was a big Hank Williams fan, like Jim Reeves. So it's like I woke up, I had this tune in my head, and I had to find the chords. Like the tune was complete. It was complete in my head. So I found the chords, went, okay. And then I went, okay, let's put a bridge in there. So I basically put a rhythm and blues bridge in it. And then I thought, I need some lyrics. So I went, what lyric do I have in my head? I went, driving down the road, I got Hank. Okay, that's it. Hank died in the backseat of a car on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, what if Hank would, so I thought, the mind just starts going like this. So I thought Thelma and Louise and Hank Williams, I combined the two. And I've been in a few relationships in my life, friendship, and different things.
Sure.
And when I'm done, a lot of times I don't explain myself. I just walk away. I will not explain. Sometimes that's why I'm a musician and an artist. Sometimes I'm not the most eloquent speaker. I might just say what's on my mind. And I think sometimes it's easier just to walk away.
Right, yeah.
Like, literally, it's like, and so one of the lines in the song, the opening verses, so I made up a little scenario, like a, kind of thing. The second verse goes, there's nothing wrong with you, ain't nothing wrong with me. We just ain't meant to be. So don't go looking for me just to start a fight, because I won't be there. And basically my wife saw the lyrics. I'm like, what is this? And I'm going, it's just a screenplay that came in my head.
Right.
It's like after you see enough movies and, well, just all these weird offbeat movies. And, being in my 20s in the 80s, we had a lot of those interesting times, went to theaters and saw these really offbeat movies. So all that kind of stuff plays out in my head when I'm writing a song. My biggest problem is, how much me do I let out? How much me do how honest can I be? How much should I make up? And what should I admit to? And that's, what should I admit to? I won't. It's like, I love the line, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
On that note, I think we're out of time.
Oh,
it's been fascinating though. But thank you for doing this. And I want to thank the audience for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to everything that I've been calling them Pat Acts, even though that's the name of the band, but that's
who I am.
That's who exactly. You are not only the band, you are also a person who is part of the band, whatever way you want to. Anyway, so if you go to iTunes or CD Baby or Spotify and put in Pat Acts, and you're going to find the songs, right?
Yeah, or even YouTube. YouTube's a great way to find me.
For sure. Okay.
Or Facebook.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You can find them on Facebook. And thank you, everybody, for watching the show. I appreciate it. And we always appreciate if you share and if you subscribe and all of those things. And take care, everybody, and peace out.
Thank you very much for having me. Peace.